Hey guys, it's Courtney, and I am here with a design team project for Scrapping for Less. I am using the Avery Elle stamp set Critter Crew, and I'm using Lawn Fawn's Jet Black ink to stamp that on a piece of Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock cut with a wonky stitch rectangle die. I wanted to add a little bit of dimension to my card panel here, so I'm also going to be using a stencil by Echo Park. That's the balloon stencil, and I'm not using this to cover up the entire panel. I'm just using one balloon at a time, and I'm using here just a piece of full stick post-it note tape and kind of ripping that apart to mask all my surrounding balloons so that I'm just working with one single balloon at a time. I'll be using Texture Paste by Ranger to go ahead and just fill that one balloon in, and then I'll clean off my stencil and do that again to another area of the card panel. Next, I'll move on to the Copic coloring while I wait for that texture paste to dry. And I'm just using 2 or 3 color blends here, keeping the coloring pretty simple, starting off with the box. Starting off with my lightest color, here is E31, and I'm just mapping out where my darkest areas will be underneath the top part of that box where it overhangs on the rest of the box will create a shadow. The dog's little paws, the wing of the owl, all of those areas will create shadows. So I'll move on to my darkest color and then my mid-tone and then back to my lightest color. Once my coloring was done and my texture paste was dry, I fit that stencil right over top of the balloons that we added texture paste to. And again, I masked that out with some post-it note tape or post-it notes. And I'm using my ink blending tool and Barn Door Distress ink to just add color to the top of that texture paste. You can use either one of the little mini ink blending tools that they have out now or a sponge dauber, but in this case it was pretty simple shape, so I just used my regular ink blending tool. I took a Cricut pen just to add the little strings to the balloons. Then I decided to keep the whole color scheme red, so I colored the little party hats that the animals are wearing in red as well. I'm using an R22, an R24, and an R46. Next, I took a white Jelly Roll pen and just added a little bit of detail to some of those party hats. Some of them I added little stripes. The others I added little polka dots. I stamped the surprise greeting from that stamp set with Red Royal ink by Hero Arts right on the top of that panel, and I'll be stamping the rest of my sentiment on the inside of the card. So I took another piece of the Nina Solar white cardstock, cut down with that wonky stitched rectangle die, and laid out the rest of my sentiment. And I went ahead and stamped that with VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I added some of those little confetti pieces that are also part of the stamp set, and I just surrounded that sentiment a bit and I colored that in with my Copics. I didn't do any shading with these, I just kept them solid red. Once they were colored, I added a little bit of shimmer with my Wink of Stella. I'm using a dark red card base here, so I used my Tombow Mono Multi Glue to adhere my inside panel as well as my outside panel to that card base. It was looking a little plain, so I decided to add a shadow using my C5, my C3, and C1 Copic markers, and I just added that shadow right to the bottom of that box. I also took my Cricut pen and outlined those balloons. They weren't really popping out the way I wanted them to, so I just added a border. After I got done recording, I decided that I still needed a little bit extra, so I did add a few of those confetti pieces that I added to the inside of the card on the outside as well. And that is it for today. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I hope you have a great day.